All right, Rabbi, say good morning. Let's begin. Today's daf is Mem Vav. We are picking up on Mem Hey Amud Beis. I know that Yehuda left off 8 lines up from the bottom. Yes, we're just going to begin a few lines before that, just so we begin the sugya new today with Ibai Lahu. It'll go quickly. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 lines up from the bottom on 45b. Mem Hey Amud Beis. Our shir this morning is dedicated by our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Kislev. Josh and Becca Friedman, the Eloi Nishmas, Josh's father, Yisrael Yehuda ben Rav Chaim Rafael, Semia Malka Esterson, the Eloi Nishmas, their parents, Yitzchak Leib ben Aaron HaKohen, Sarah Rachel Bas Baruch and Hinda Bas Henech Ephraim. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshamas will have an aliyah and the families a nechama. And with that, let us begin. Iboiluhu. Tochsman o kilef neizman o kila acharzman. So we'll say, you saw this the question. So remember again that the Mishnah on the top of Amud Beis yesterday introduced us to the concept of the idea that a boy reaches, of course, full maturation, let's say for Niddah purposes, from the age of 13 years old in 1 day, right? A girl 12 years old and 1 day. So the Mishnah then dealt with what happens the year preceding that. So from 11 to 12 for a girl, from 12 to 13 for a boy. So the Mishnah said, for example, halacha l'maisa during that year, that lead-up year, so let's say for Niddah purposes, we go ahead and we check their level of comprehension. If they understand what it is that they are saying and that they're doing, so ultimately their Niddah are binding. If it turns out that they don't understand, their Niddah are not binding. So it says, now the Gemara asks the question. Tochzman kilifnei zman kila achar zman. So we'll say that we'll call that lead-up year. That lead-up year, 12 to 13 for a boy, 11 to 12 for a girl. What is the status of that year? Is that year treated ultimately, again, like the year post-maturation or like earlier on? So for example, let's just use one gender just to keep it easy. So for a boy, so we'll say, so the year from age 12 to 13, is that year considered like 13 and above, or ultimately again like 12 and below? So Lamai Hilchas, the Gemara says, well, what are you asking? In other words, what area of halacha are you discussing? Ilin Nadarim, lav kilef neizman damya, v'lav kila achazman damya. So we'll say if it's for Nadarim, so already we spoke about that. That lead-up year is neither. Meaning that lead-up year, the way we determine its identity is ultimately by investigating the status of the child. In other words, if the child understands his Nidarim, her Nidarim, then the lead-up year ultimately will be considered like maturation. If they don't understand that it's not like maturation, Ela Leonshin Mai. Rabbi Gemara says, what about for liability? An interesting shaila. So we'll say, so as the child, before the child reaches the age of maturation. So again, we're just going to stick with the boy just to keep it easy. So for a boy between the ages of 12 and 13, so we'll say, so we know for Nadarim, if his Nadarim is effective or not, that depends. We ask him, right? We check, does he understand what he's saying? If he understands what he's saying, then halacha l'maisa, his Neder is valid. If he doesn't understand, his Neder is not valid. To which the Gemara said, we're asking, what about for Onshin? If he does something, will he be held liable for that act? So Rabbi Chanina Darmi Tarbayo, Tochsman, Kilif Neizman. Rav and Rabbi Chanina both hold that ultimately, again, that year 12 to 13 is considered to be like prior to 12, and therefore no liability. Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Darmi Tarvayu Tochsman, Kila Achrazman. Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi say no, 12 to 13 is treated like what? 13 and above. Amrav Nacham Bar Yitzchak. This simanach, the way to remember this is Zos Lifnim Mi Yisrael. Okay, so Rashi points out this was a way of remembering this, that ultimately, again, we could see Rashi if I had to remember that. You saw this in yesterday's daf. Now with that introduction, let's pick up from where we left off. Masiv Rav Hamnuna, Achra Azman Hazeh. So Rav Hamnuna quotes the Mishnah, and the Mishnah says, after this time, Afapisha Amru Ein Anu Yodin L'Shem Nadarnu L'Shem Hikdashnu Nidarehem Neder Vekdeshen Hekdish. So remember again, what did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said that although a boy between the ages of 12 and 13, we will investigate if they understand the nature of their Nidarim, but one thing is clear, which is what? After a boy reaches the age of 13, even if he says, I don't understand the neder I made, or I don't understand the hekdish I made, what's the halacha about saying? It's binding. It's binding, right? Any neder, any hekdesh he makes after the age of 13 is considered to be halachically binding. Now, what do you infer from here? What Rav Hamnuna infers from here? Hatoch zman kilifnei zman. That's only true what? That's only true from the age of 13 and above. But what you see from here is that what? Anything before the age of 13, even the lead-up year between 12 and 13, is reckoned as a katan, is reckoned as younger. Therefore, no liability. Amar li Rava imoresha, but Rabbi wants to look at the beginning of the Mishnah. Kodim azman hazeh afapi shamri yodu anu l'shem minadarnu l'shem mihikdashnu ein nedarehem neder ve'ein hekdesh and hekdesh. Yet the Mishnah also said before this time. I will say now before this time is really referring to before 12 years old for a boy, right? Before this time, even if a child before the age of 12 says, "I understand my neder, I understand my hekdesh," such a statement, such a neder, such a hekdesh is what? Is meaningless. But what can you infer from this? Hatoch zman kila achar zman. I could infer from that, however, that between the ages of 12 and 13, again, halacha l'maisa, that should be reckoned like a neder, like a hekdesh made by an adult or by a child after 13, which should be valid. Velohi, truly, it's not a good inference. Rava katoi. Rava made a mistake. Why? Because who saw Rav Hamnuna Mishnah Yisera Kadayik? So he thought that Rav Hamnuna ultimately again was being medayik based on the extra phrase in the Mishnah. V'adayik miseifa leiduk mireisha. And if you're going to be medayik from the seifa, you could just as easily be medayik from the reisha. V'loi, but truly that's not true. Rav Hamnuna migufa demas nisin kadayik. Rav Hamnuna himself was making his diuk from the essence, from the actual ruling of the Mishnah. Hala achar zman heichi dami. So we'll say, so now let's analyze. So we're still left with this basic yisodistic question, which is, how do we look at that? We'll call it the lead-up year, right? The year before actual gadlus, right? So remember again. So we're just gonna keep on saying, just gonna do it with the boy, just to keep it easy. So I don't have to keep giving 2 examples. So everyone's going to agree that from the age of 13 and on, he's a gadol. 13 years old and 1 day and on, he is a gadol, which means his nedarim are valid. His hekdish is valid. What are we trying to figure out? What's his status between 12 and 13? So both says, remember again here, and that's a machlokes. That we seem to have a yisodistic machlokes. To which the Gemara says, well, what's the case? So the Gemara says, la'achazan heichi domi. Idolo aisi shtei saros katanu. So both say, so what? Let's analyze this for just a moment. What's the case of achar zman? So if the boy brought, or this is for a girl also, but if the child brought physical signs of maturation, 2 hairs, if there are not 2 hairs, physical sign of maturation, then katanhu. Ultimately, again, the child is still considered a katan. Elalav da aisi shtei saras. Rather, it must be that what? That the child is presenting ultimately again with 2 saras, top of memvav. V'taima de la'achar zmanu de garmina lemilsei. Hatoch zman kilifnei zman. So it's actually very interesting. So the Gemara now presents a possibility that the actual definition of godless requires 2 things. Number 1, passage of time. Number 2, signs of physical maturation. So it's not enough to be a 13-year-old boy, just past the age, but rather again, for a boy to be a gadol, he must ultimately again have the shtei saras as well as the passage of time. So what you see from here is that what? That lamaisa between the ages of 12 and 13, ultimately he is totally reckoned like a katan. In other words, I will say, in order to be a gadol, you need 2 things: shanim and simanim. Shanim and simanim, which I will say, by the way, is an incredible metaphor, not just for this Gemara, but ultimately again for life as well. To be a gadol in life, you need shanim and simanim, right? You need age. You can't be a gadol when you're young. It just doesn't happen. You need life experience, and you need simanim. You need the character traits, right? You need the simanim ultimately of being a great person. Hasmada, midos, tovos. So shanim and simanim is not just a din over here; it's a din in life. Va'od mas Rabbi Zera. Further, Rabbi Zera raises a kasha. Ish kiyafli lindor neder. When the pasuk says, if a man will articulate a neder, ma talmud lomar ish. Why does the pasuk say ish? The rabbos ben yud gimel shana v'yom echad. It comes to include even a boy who's 13 years old in 1 day. Sha'afa pi she'en yodei lahafli, even though he's unable to articulate an explanation for his nedarim, nedarav kayamin. Ultimately, again, his nedarim are valid. So we'll say this goes back to the Mishnah, right? That once you reach the age of 13 years old in 1 day, your nedarim are valid, even if you say, I don't know what I'm talking about. Right? A lot of people say, I don't know what I'm talking about. Or even if they don't say it, they don't know what they're talking about. So I'll say, but the idea over here is once you make a neder after the age of 13 years old and 1 day, that neder is valid, even if you claim that you don't understand the meaning of your words. So, heichi dami, what's the case? Rabbi say the 13-year-old and 1 day old, 13 years and 1 day old boy who's making the neder that is valid, even if he doesn't understand what he's saying. If he didn't bring 2 hairs, a sign of physical maturation, then he's still a gadon. It must be that he brought 2 hairs. V'taima de ben yud gimel v'yom echad hu de havila ish hatoch zman kila lifnei zman. So we'll say it becomes abundantly clear that what? That the 2 hairs by themselves is not enough. Age by itself is not enough. In order to be a gadol, what do you need? Shanim simanim. For our purposes, what do you see over here? That Allah Lamaisa, it's only if you pass the threshold of 13 years old in 1 day. Hatoch zman, but within the, meaning between 12 and 13, ultimately, again, such a child will not be considered a gadol, tiyufta, to which the Gemara says, indeed, this is a refutation to the other opinions. So also where the Gemara is holding right now is that between the ages of 12 and 13, halacha lemaisa, that child is a katan. Nidarim may be a little bit of a difference, right? Nidarim may be a little bit of an exception, that if the child understands what the nature of a neder is, ultimately, again, that neder may be binding, but that's the exception, not the rule. Otherwise, halacha lamaisa, between the ages of 12 and 13, the child is a katan. Even if what? Even if the child presents with signs of physical maturation, the child is still a katan. Rav Nachman says, in reality, kitanoi. But in reality, this whole thing is a machlokes tanoim. How so? Ben tes shanim shehevi beis saras shuma. Let's listen to this. Let's say if you have, ultimately, again, a ben tes. I will say, the truth is, when it says ben tes over here, really what it means is a child up until the age of 9. That's really what it means. A child really up until the age of 9 who presented with signs of physical maturation, beis saras, shuma. Both say we assume it's a mole. Or what does that mean? That we assume that those are hairs that grew from a mole as opposed to what? As opposed to actual physical signs of maturation or signs of physical maturation. From between the ages of 9 and 12, the yom echad, shuma. Still, again, ultimately it's going to be treated like a shuma, like a mole. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, simin. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Up until 9, I'll agree that the hairs we attributed to a mole. Between 9 and 12, ultimately, again, that can already be a sign of physical maturation. Uben yud gimel shana v'yom echad divrei akol simin. But from the age of 13 years old in 1 day, everyone agrees that what? That ultimately, again, the signs, hair is ultimately a simin. So the Gemara says, Haguf akasha, you just stated an inherent contradiction. Amrit b'men tesva ad yud beis shana v'yom echad shuma. You just said from the age of 9 until 12, the hairs we attributed to a mole, ha yud gimel shana gufa simin. But yet again, once the boy reaches 13, ultimately again the hairs will be assigned. V'hadir tani ben yud gimel shana v'yom echad simin. So we'll say, so interestingly enough, but their shaila is over here, is it when he reaches the age of 13, or does it need to be 13 years old and 1 day? To which the Gemara says, so we'll say, so that's the inherent contradiction. So the Gemara says, Simin, ha yud gimel shana gufa shuma. My love, Tanahi. But say, is this not a machlokes tanoim? Demar savar toch zman kila achar zman. One opinion holds that between the age of 12 and 13, it's considered to be like post 13. Umar savar toch zman kilif neizman. And the other opinion holds that no, 12 to 13 is considered to be like below 12. To which the Gemara says, no. D'chuli alma toch zman kilif neizman. I will say everyone agrees that a boy between the ages of 12 and 13 is the same as what? A boy below the age of 12. In other words, I will say 13 is the cutoff. 13 years old in 1 day is the cutoff. So what's the machlokes? So lo d'chuli alma toch zman kilif neizman. V'idi betinokes. So I will say, listen to this. We're dealing with both cases over here where the Gemara says we're actually not dealing with a boy, but rather we're dealing with a girl. V'reisha Rabbi, v'sefer Rabbi Shimon Elazar, and both reflecting 2 different opinions. The Reisha's Rabbi, Sefer's Rabbi Elazar, or v'baisema hava habatinok. Both are dealing with a boy. The Reisha Rabbi Shimon Elazar, v'sefer Rabbi, v'baisema hava ha Rabbi habatinokes habatinok habatinokes. We'll say so again. All different ways of explaining the brisa, attributing it either to different genders or to different opinions. V'bay zema, havaha Rabbi Shimon Elazar, habetinok, habetinokes. So we'll say, okay, so which the Gemara says, we'll say the way the sugya ends off over here, leaving aside how to interpret that brisa. So again, you see 4 different interpretations how to interpret the brisa, but bottom line, the way the Gemara seems to be ending off over here is how everyone agrees that toch zman is kilif nezman. Everyone is going to agree that halacha l'maisa, that a boy between the ages of 12 and 13, and again, of course, you understand for a girl that's between 11 and 12, is kilif nezman. Ultimately, is like a much younger child. And in order for a child to reach the age of maturation, what has to happen? Shanim v'simanim. Passage of time, physical signs of maturation. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Siman. So let's listen to this. So Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says that ultimately, again, saros, hair, from the age of 10 until 12, ultimately, again, is going to be a siman. Amrab Kruspedoi, Breid Rab Shabsi, V'hu Sha'odan Bo. That's only true if what? If the hairs are still there at the time that the child actually reaches maturation. We'll say, look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says, "V'husha odan bo kishehigdil." Right. So it's very interesting. So you have Rabbi Yosef saying that if the child sprouts hairs from the age of 10 to 12, ultimately again those hairs could be significant. Reb Kruspedoi is mentioned very few times throughout Shas, but Chris Budai perhaps has one of the most famous statements throughout all of Shas, which is the Gemara Maseches Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Chris Budai says, "Shlosha svarim niftachin." Right, there are 3 svarim. Right, svarim of tzadikim, rishaim, and beinonim. Right, so Rabbi Chris Budai says, what happens in Rosh Hashanah? So tzadikim nechtamin, right, nechtamin l'chaim, rishaim nechtamin l'misa, and Beinonim Tuluyin V'omdin. That's Rabbi Chris Pedai. I've mentioned I think maybe only 3-4 times, maybe even less, throughout Shas, but perhaps again one of the most well-known statements. In any event, so the Gemara says as follows: Rabbi Chris Pedai says, when does a hair that sprouts between the age of 10 and 12 remain significant? Only, Rashi says over here, only V'husha Odan Ba'kish Higdil. Only if the hairs remain there when the child has reached a level of maturation. Aval nashru, but if the hairs fell out, bein saim igloy milsa deshumahavi. So it says that's very interesting. So in this model over here, a hair that is sprouted by a younger child, ultimately again can go ahead and be significant as long as they remain past the age of maturation. But if they fall out before the age of maturation, that's ultimately indicative that what? That it's really a result of a mole and not a sign of physical maturation. Tanya Namiach, everybody said that supports this. Ben Tes Shadim V'Yom Echad Shehevi Beis Saros. If you have a boy who's 9 years old in one day who brought Saros to present the physical sign of maturation, Shuma, ultimately again, it's a mole. So we'll say that's hair that comes about before the age of 9. Miben tesva ad yud beis shana, from 9 until 12, right? 12 in one day, right? V'yom echad va'odan bo. Shuma, ultimately again, also considered a mole. Rabbi Yosef Yehuda Omer Siman. Rabbi Yosef Yehuda says ultimately again it's a siman. Amar Rava Hilchasa toch zman kilif neizman. So we'll say Rava wants to say, what's that? Rava will say anything before the age of maturation. So for example, for a boy, anything before 13, and again, specifically we're focusing on over here the age of 12 to 13 is considered to be like his childhood years. Rav Shmuel Bar Zutra masnil l'shmaita derava b'hai lishna. So Rav Shmuel Bar Zutra had a different lashon. Amar Rava Kitana. So we'll say he accepted this principle but illustrated it a little bit differently. Watch this. Kitana. Kol Yud Beis Shana Mima Enes V'Holeches. So we'll say just a word of introduction about this. We know that halacha l'maisa, a father has the right to go ahead and marry off his daughter, his minor daughter, right? His kitana daughter. Not only that, but that kiddushin is going to be deoraisa, which is pretty amazing. There is a different concept, a kiddushin dirabanan, which allows a mother or a brother to go ahead and marry off a minor girl. That kiddushin, however, is only dirabanan. So because it's dirabanan, then what? The girl has the ability to get out of it. How? Through miyun. They both say, what does miyun mean? What does miyun mean? refusal, right? She just says, I don't want this anymore. If she just says, I don't want this anymore, the marriage is dissolved. However, if she continues the marriage into her adult life, then what? Then the marriage morphs into a biblically valid marriage. So watch this. So Kitana, Kol Yud Beis Shana Mima Enes V'Holechas. A Kitana, her entire 12th year. Now, so you understand, of course, the 12th year is really what? From the ages of 11 to 12, right? Meaning you begin your 12th year, the girl begins her 12th year once she turns 11, right? Since you turn 11, you begin your 12th year. So that entire 12th year, i.e. between the ages of 11 and 12, she has the ability to do miyun, which Rabbi means what? She has the ability to do miyun. What does that tell me? What's her status? She's Ketana. She's a Ketana, right? Mikan ve'elech, anything after, meaning once she enters into the 13th year, i.e. once she turns 12 years old, what's the halacha? Mikan ve'elech eina mema'enes ve'eina choletzes. Nor can she do chalitza. Now we'll see what that means in just a moment, right? Rashi says over here, "Eina mema'enes shema hevia va'achshav havisimin dala achar zmanu vim yevamahi lo chashvina legedol inyan chalitza ve'ina choletza." So we'll see what that means in just a moment. So the Gemara says, "Haguf akasha." I don't understand. Inherited contradiction. Amrit, you just said "Eina mema'enes." So you said ultimately what? Once she reaches the age of 12, she can no longer go out and do miyun. Why not? Alma Gedolihi. So why does that? I will say because she's a Gedola. Right, she's a Gedola. So the Gemara says, I Gedolihi tachlos. But if she's a Gedola, she should be able to do chalitza. V'chitema misafkele. So maybe you'll say ultimately again that we're mesupak. What are we mesupak about? Look at Rashi. V'chitema misafkele. Im hevia, im lo hevia, hilchach miun lo, dilma hevia, v'chalitza nami lo shema lo hevia. Maybe you're going to say like this. Once she reaches the age of 12, so the problem is we're not going to let her do miun, because maybe what? Maybe she did show signs of physical maturation, but we don't know. But we're also not going to let her do chalitza. Why? Because maybe she didn't develop signs of physical maturation. So we'll kind of play it safe on both ends. Umi misafkele, both say first wide line, memvav amad aleph. Are we really misupak? Rava said, Kitana she'egia lichla shnoseha. A Kitana reached the age of physical maturation. Eina tzricha b'dika. She does not require an examination to see if what? To see if halacha l'maisa she sprouted hairs. Why? Chazaka via simanin. Ultimately, again, it's a chazaka that she brought to us. So this is actually very important. Even though we just said before that halacha l'maisa, in order for a gadol to become a gadol, what do you need? Shanim and simanim. We don't need, bless you, we don't need independent corroboration of the simanim. Because we assume that what? As soon as the shanim come, the simanim come as well. It's very important. So it's not like, you require some type of bedika for a boy or for a girl to see if they've actually developed signs of physical maturation. We assume there's a chazaka. Now, once they pass the threshold of shanim, ultimately, again, they have simanim as well. To which the Gemara says, that's true, hani mili bistama. So this is actually very interesting. That's true if you don't check. Aval hacha debadku v'lo ashkechu lo. This is actually quite fascinating. It's also another good metaphor for life. That sometimes, again, you could assume things are a certain way if you don't investigate too much, right? Sometimes investigation is not always the best thing. Be careful about the questions you ask, right? So I'll say, so over here, Einachinami, under normal circumstances, if she passed the age of 12 or he passed the age of 13, there's a chazaka, that's what? That Allah Chalamaysa, they have simonim. So you don't have to check. But if you checked and they don't have it, then we have a problem. Sivan says, Ihachi, Timain. If that's the case, ultimately, again, that I will say that she doesn't have signs of physical maturation, then let her do miyun. She's still a kitana. Then even after she turned 12 years old, halacha lamaisa, let her still do miyun. To which the Gemara says, Choshish and Shema Nishru. No, because now what are we concerned about? We're concerned maybe she had the hairs, but what? They fell out. So the Gemara says, Hani chalamad choshishin. So I'll say, that's fine, according to the opinion who says that if you examine a boy or a girl at after the age of physical maturation and they don't have hair, that we're concerned that maybe they had it and it fell out. But according to the opinion that says that you're not choshesh, what is there to say? The itmar, Rav Papa, because both said this is actually a subject of dispute. Rav Papa, in choshesh and shemen issue. Rav Papa in general holds that what? That Allah Chalamaisa were not choshesh, that maybe again the child had hairs and it fell out. Rav Papa Amar chosheshin. Rav Papa said we are choshesh for that. So both says just understand. So here's what you have going on over here. Under normal circumstances, does a boy or a girl, once they reach the age of maturation, require a bedika? No. Why? Chazaka. Chazaka that once a boy turns 13, once a girl turns 12, they have shanim and simanim. When does the problem come up? When for some reason, whatever the reason is, there was a bedika and you don't find hairs. So now both say, so what do I do with that reality? So now that becomes itself a machlokes. One opinion says that what chosheshin, that they were there and they fell out. They both say, remember again, if they were there and they fell out, then what? Then the boy is a gadol, the girl is a ketana. The other opinion says, no, if it's not there, then what? Then we assume it just didn't develop yet. So Rav Papa Amar Chosheshin. So the Gemara says, the itmar Rav Papa Amar in Chosheshin Shemanishu. Rav Papa Amar Chosheshin in Hanimi liva inyan chalitza. That's true that will be Choshesh inyan chalitza. Aval inyan miyun Chosheshin. Ultimately, again, but for me, ultimately will also be choshesh as well. So most I say here's the problem. So now we begin to understand. In this case of where you discover that the 12-year-old girl, 12-year-old and one-day girl, doesn't have simanim. So the shaila is, what are we going to do with her? So on one hand, if you hold choshesh, and then what? We can't let her do chalitza. I'm sorry. Yeah, if you hold chosheshin, so she can't do miyun and she can't do chalitza, right? She can't do miyun. Why? Because she may be a gedola. She can't do chalitza. Why? Because ultimately, again, she may be a ketana. To which the Gemara says, "Aval le'inyan miyun chosheshin michlal the ma'adamer chosheshin choletzes." So we'll say, so according to the opinion of chosheshin, that we would let her do chalitza because ultimately, again, she's a gedola. I v'ha chosheshin ba'alma kamar. But one second, if there's a chashash, I will say that chashash cuts both ways. Ela li olam de lo badka. The truth is, what we're talking about over here is a 12-year-old girl, 12 years old in one day, and there was no bedika, right? There was no examination. So we don't know, does she have signs of physical maturation, not signs of physical maturation? Ule'inyin chalitza chashinan. So I'll say, here's the difference. When it comes to chalitza, which is a doraisa, we're choshesh that maybe she did not physically develop. V'chi kamarava chazaka lemiyun. And when Rava ultimately said there's a chazaka, that's what? That once a girl passes the age of 12 years old in one day, she has shanim and simanim, that's legabe miyun. That's legabe dirabanan. Aval chalitza, but for a doraisa, baya bedika. Ultimately, again, she will require bedika. Pretty incredible. So the Gemara says, Amar Avdimi min arda hilchasa, the halacha is chosheshin shema nishru. Ultimately, again, the halacha is that we're choshesh, that the girl did have signs of, even in the case of ultimately where there was a badika, and you find that there's no hair, sort of Dimar Adah says, the halacha is we are choshesh that they were there, but maybe they fell out. V'hani mili, heichad de katsha b'soch zman, u'ba'al la'achar zman. That's only true where halacha l'maisa, again, the kiddushin took place when she was a minor, but she continued to live with her husband even after she became a gedola, di'ika sveika daraisa, because in that case, ultimately, again, there's a suffix daraisa, ava me'ikaralo. But we'll say again from the beginning, ultimately, we will not accept that position. Amar Afuna. So we'll say, so before we go on, just the way we paskin in this particular situation is quite interesting. So this is in Even HaEzer, Kuf Nun Hey. This is his Sif Yod Dalid. So the way the Shulchan Aruch paskins over here is as follows. Okay, Shulchan Aruch says, Even HaEzer, Simen Kuf Nun Hey, Sif Yod Dalid. Ein shtei sa'aras simen gadlus, el imkein ba'o miyud beis shana ve'elech. So we'll say, so halacha l'maisa, 2 hairs are not a sign of physical maturation, unless, of course, they came from the 12th year and on. Miyud beis shana, from 12 years old and on. I shouldn't say clear. From 12 years old and on. Avalim ba'u koldim lochein, afilu toch shnas yud beis, chashivi kishuma, ve'eno nechsheves gidola al yadam, so we'll say, so halacha l'maisa over here, this is not by a girl. So ultimately, again, So for a girl, so 2 hairs is not a sign of physical maturation unless they occur from 12 years old and on. But any hair that develops before that, halacha l'maisa, we attribute to a mole. Umiyu kishemotzim la saros achar hazman machzikin osa kigdola afilu lechalitza velo chayshinon shema bo kodem hazman ve'ishom shem niru ba bei saros kodem yud beishana v'olav ach yud beishana ap bishlo v'yeh saros ach yud beishana chashuv kigdola miyun v'avabikin chashuv kitan lechalitza. So we'll say, so bottom line, the way the Shulchan Aruch paskins is the way we've been pasking up until now, which is toch zman kilifnei zman. Essentially, again, for a boy the age of 12 to 13, or for a girl the age of 11 to 12, that's minor status. That year has absolutely no difference than the rest of their childhood years, and therefore even hair that develops during that year is halachically insignificant. The exception to this rule may be what, or is what? The Mishnah? Nidarim. That's the exception. And again, that's based on the fact that Nidarim, I will say, kind of operates by a different set of rules. Right? But halacha l'maisa, anything below the age of 12 for a girl, below the age of 13 for a boy, ultimately, again, is considered to be like yaldos, like childhood. That's why halacha l'maisa, it's only hairs that come about after 12 years old, after 13 years old, that have significance. Now again, the Shulchan Aruch happens to quote an opinion that halacha l'maisa, if the child developed hairs before the age of maturation and those hairs remained, then eina chinami, those hairs could count as well after the fact, right? So if they remain after the boy reaches the age of 13, after the girl reaches the age of 12, then halacha l'maisa, they could count as hairs of maturation, physical maturation. But l'maisa, before the age of 13 for a boy, before the age of 12 years old for a girl, halacha l'maisa, they do not count as maturation. So we'll say, so that's how we paskin. Lifnei zman, ultimately again is ki al dusam, hairs that even signs of physical maturation before the age of 13 or 12, halach l'maisa will not count. That's the Shulchan Aruch. Good. Weiter. Says the Gemara, Amar Afuna, hikdish va'achal loke. We'll say, listen to this interesting case. What happens? This is a case of toch zman, Rashi points out. Toch zman, tinok hadeh liflo. So we'll say, to keep it easy, we'll just go with a boy. A boy between the ages of 12 and 13 articulates a neder. Right, that's the toch zman case. So what happens? Hikdish va'achal. So he goes ahead and he's makdish something, he consecrates something. So remember again, as the Mishnah said, if a boy between the ages of 12 and 13 makes a neder, hekdish is a form of neder, and he knows what he's saying, then what's the halacha? His hekdish ultimately again is valid. So he's makdish something, and then Rabbi will say, what does he do? He eats it. He eats the item he was makdish. So he takes a loaf of bread. He's makdish it to the Beis Hamikdash, and then what? He eats that loaf of bread. So what's the halacha? Loke. He gets malchus. Shene'emar ish kiyafli lindar v'lo yachel dvaro. So I'll say, because the pasuk says, if a man will articulate a neder, he shall not profane his word. And what do we learn from this? But whoever has the capacity to make a neder is subject to the prohibition of not profaning his word. And the halacha is, if you profane your word, which means if you violate your neder, what's the halacha? You get malchus. So if you are mature enough to make a binding neder, you are also mature enough to go ahead and what? To get the punishment for violation of that neder. Therefore, this 12-year-old boy, who again, after we check him for mental competence and he understands the nature of his neder, since he can create a binding neder, therefore, what if he violates his own neder? He will be held liable and will be punished. So the Gemara says, "Massive Rafuna Bar Yehuda l'Rava l'Siyeh l'Rafuna." So we'll say ultimately again. So Rafuna Bar Yehuda ultimately again. They changed the gears here. Right, so Rashi takes away that Rava. I'm sorry. So massive Rav Huna Bar Yehuda l'Siyeh Rav Huna. So also Rav Huna Bar Yehuda brought a kasha in order to support the position of Rav Huna. How so? Amud Beis Lefi Shematzinu shehish v'hakasuv hakatan kigadol lezadon shvua uleisser ulebal yachel. So we'll say, listen to this. We have found that the Torah has made a katan like a gadol, legabe shvua, Isser and Bal Yachel. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Lefish Shematzinu Shehishva Akasuf Michiyafli Dimashma Yodea Lahaflos Samoch Leish Dakati Katanu Koshnazos. So remember again, under normal circumstances, the halacha is that a katan, right, a boy less than the age of 13 years old, will not be held halachically liable. Nidarim is the exception, right? You've already shown this. That halacha l'mais, if the child has enough mental acuity to be able to go ahead and demonstrate that he understands what it is that he's vowing to, then halacha l'mais says nidarim stand. So that's what it means. Since the Torah goes ahead and equates the katan to a gadol, l'zadon shvua, for shvua purposes, ula iser, ula bal yachel, yachel yehe chayiv al hekdesh shel karban. You might have thought that halacha l'maisa, if he makes something hekdish and he violates that hekdish, that halacha l'maisa, again, he should be liable to go ahead and bring a karban for violation of his hekdish. Talmud lomar zeh hadavar. Therefore, the pasuk says zeh hadavar. Now, what's the drush over here? Now, remember again, this actually is a pasuk by Nidarim. Zeh hadavar. Rashi says zeh hadavar shetziva kilomar leiser v'lo yachel isrami shehe isuro iser unedaro neder babal yachel v'lo lekarban miila ubabal yachel hainu malchus u'masei l'rafunas. We'll say, now watch this. Now, interestingly enough, so remember again, zeh hadavar teaches me, when will a katan be liable? Only legabe nidarim. Only legabe nidarim. That if he goes ahead and he makes a neder and he violates that neder, that he will be held liable for violation of that neder. What's liability for violation of a neder? What is that? Malchus. But what will he not be chayiv for? He will not be chayiv a karban for me'ilah. So for example, I will say, so therefore going back for just a moment, if he's makdish something, right? If he's makdish something, ultimately, again, he might get malchus ultimately for going ahead and what? For violating his neder, right? For violating his vow, but he will not be subject ultimately, again, to a karban mi'ilah. To which the Gemara says, Katani mihas le'isser ulebal yachel chayiv. So we'll say, so what do you see from here? You see from here that halacha l'maisa for isser purposes and bal yachel will be chayiv. To which the Gemara says, Ema li isser bal yachel. So ultimately, again, I will say what it means is he will be chayiv for the isser, but not for malchus. What the Gemara is suggesting, I will say, is as follows: that perhaps the halacha by a katan, which will be unique to this specific age between 12 and 13, while it is true that he has the ability to do what? To go ahead and create a bona fide neder. And we've established the limud that what? That if you could create a bona fide neder, then what? Then ultimately you have liability for transgressing that neder. His liability is capped at the violation of a prohibition, but will not generate an obligation or liability for what? For malchus. That's the Gemara suggesting right now. So a katan, which was referring specifically to a boy between the ages of 12 years old and 13 years old, if he makes a neder and we test him and he truly understands what it is the neder that he makes, then that neder is valid. And if he violates it, he will be chayiv for that. But I will say, what's the nature of his chiyuv? It won't be malchus. What will it be? What's the prohibition or what's the violation? A lav. He violated a lav. There's no teeth to the boy. We're not going to give a 12-year-old kid malchus, but lamaisikin, he has violated the lav. Isser bal yachal manavshach. I don't understand. If you're telling me that he has violated the isser bal yachal, which is not to profane your word, not to break your neder, manavshach. Imufla samach leish daraisa milka nami lilki. So I'll say, so now watch this. Everything is going to come back to how you define the status of this boy. Remember again, I will say this is what we call a mufla samuch leish. What's a mufla samuch leish means? Mufla means what? He's been tested and has been determined to have das. Samuch leish means what? He's not yet a man, but he's almost a man, which refers to what? The age between the age of 12 and 13. So I'll say, what we've established is as follows: that a mufla samuch leish has the ability to make a neder, and what? That neder is binding. So I'll say, so the shaila is, what's his status? Is that a deoraisa status, or is that a dirabanan status? So watch what the Gemara says over here. Manavshach. So now what you've just told me is as follows. We just said about saying the line before that if a mufles samuch leish makes a neder, so we'll say, what's the status of the neder? What's the status of the neder? binding, it's valid. What happens if he violates the neder? Isser. Isser and no malchus. Isser and no malchus. Now, I remember again to point out. So the Gemara said, Rav Huna says it's an Isser and malchus, right? That Isser, so now what we're saying is no, Isser and not malchus. To which the Gemara says, I don't understand. So we'll say whether or not he's going to get malchus should be determined or should be dependent on the fundamental nature of his status. If you want to say that a muflas samach liish is a doraisa status, then just like his neder is doraisa valid, so too what when he violates it he should get malchus. The muflas samach liish lav doraisa, but if a muflas samach liish is not doraisa, then what? Iser nami leka. And I will say, if a muflas samach liish is not daraisa, but it's only derabana, so what you're telling me is that when a boy between the ages of 12 and 13 years old, who's determined to have mental clarity, makes a neder, that neder is only valid derabanan, then I will say, guess what? Not only is it not malchus, there's also not what? There's also not a isa daraisa. So which one is it? To which the Gemara says, what does it refer to? La'osan hamus harin alov. I will say, what it's referring to is as follows. It is referring ultimately again to those who are responsible for this minor child. Look at Rashi just a moment. Umishani leolam dirabanan. The truth is halacha lamaisa. When a muflas samach leish makes a neder, that neder is only valid midirabanan. So who is the isran? The isuran aman kai al osan hamus harin alav lahafish mi isura. Sheba say that 12-year-old has adult guardians. Those adult guardians are obligated to go ahead and distance him from doing anything that is aser. Shmamina katan ochal nevelos bezdin mitsuven alav lahafrisho. Rabbi say, so what it's saying over here is as follows: that halacha lamaisa, the idea over here is really the katan himself, right? Only creates an issa derabanan, right? Only creates another issa derabanan. But once he created an issa derabanan, his adult guardians are obligated to what? Prevent him from violating his own neder. So interestingly enough, a muflas samach leish, right? A muflas samach leish, between 12 years old and 13 years old, can generate a real neder, but it's only a real neder midirabanan. But once he generates that real neder midirabanan, his adult guardians are obligated to make sure that Allah Chalamaisa, he does not violate the terms of his neder. This is much like the idea that if you see a katan who eats treif, a katan who eats nevelis, Beis Din is obligated, and let's say there's no adult guardian or a derelict adult guardian, so Beis Din is obligated to step in to prevent the child from transgressing. Hachama askinon, what's the case over here? Kegon shehikdishu va'achlo achir. And both say it's very interesting. So the case we're dealing with over here is where the katan, right, the what was the lashon? The katan mufla the right? So the Gemara says that ultimately again, muflas samach leish, sorry. So the muflas samach leish, he made a neder, right? Or in this case over here, he was makdish something, and then what? Someone else is eating it. Supposed to hear this? He was makdish it, and someone else is eating it. So I say, so what's the status now? Hani chalaman damar hikdishu va'achla acherim lokin. So I'll say, ultimately again, if you say that when the mufla leish is eating it and is makdish and someone else is eating it, that they get malchus because the hektish is good. But I will say, according to the opinion who says that the mufla leish, his neder doesn't have validity, there would be no malchus for someone who consumes it. What is there to say? The itmar. But here we go, because here's the case. Hikdishu va'achlo acherim. But listen to this fascinating case. So this is the boy between the ages of 12 years old and 13 years old who makes something hekdish. So he doesn't eat it, someone else eats it. So the shaila is, what is their liability? Rav Kahana Amar Ein Logan. Rav Kahana says, you don't get malchus for this. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish Amar Tarvayu Lokin. Ultimately, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish both say that ultimately the person who eats it does get malchus. To which the Gemara says, you're right, but even that malchus is what? Midrabanan ukra asmachta ba'alma. We'll say, even according to the one who says that the person who eats it gets malchus, that's malchus dirabanan, and ultimately again, the pasuk itself is just an asmachta. So I will say the way the Gemara is ending off over here sounds like this, which is a mufla samuch leish, which is the boy who's 12 years old and between 12 years old and 13 years old. ultimately, again, his Nidarim are binding. If he knows what he's talking about, his Nidarim binding. But it appears based on the Gemara over here that his Nidarim are binding in which way? Ultimately, again, Midrabanan. And even if there are malchus generated by consumption of something that he was makdish, those malchus ultimately again will be malchus dirabanan. Gufa. Let's go back and analyze. Hikdish v'achlu acherim. If the mufla samuch leish was makdish something, and then others went ahead and ate it, Rav Kahana Amar in Lokin. Rav Kahana says they don't get malchus. Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish Tarbayu Lokin, they do get malchus. Forget say, what are they arguing about? Here we go. Muflas Mar Savra Muflas samuch leish daraisa. One opinion holds that muflas samuch leish has the ability to create nidarim which are binding midaraisa, real nidarim. And therefore, I'll say, based on that, if the mufla samuch leish is makdish something, so again, I'll say that's a neder, right? When you're makdish something, that's a neder. Granted, we saw that everyone agrees that a mufla samuch leish will not be chayiv what? A carbon me'ilah, right? There's no carbon me'ilah. So the mice say again, but when the mufla samuch leish makes something hektish, that is binding, and therefore, if someone else goes ahead and eats it, they'll say, what's the halacha? Malchus. Now, obviously, it's malchus if they did it intentionally, not if they did it unintentionally. But the idea is that the mufla samuch leish is daraisa. Umar savar mufla samuch leish midrabanan. The other opinion holds that no, mufla samuch leish only creates a reality midrabanan. Midrabanan, halacha lemaisa, it's only midrabanan, and therefore again, if someone else eats that which the mufla samuch leish was makdish, halacha lemaisa, that does not generate liability. Master Yirmiyah, Yisoma Shenadra, if you have a Yisoma, ultimately again, who went ahead and made a neder. So we'll say, so again, remember, this is a girl who was married off. Rashi says, Shesiase ima de basmiun hi dinisuin didamid rabbanan. So we'll say this is a girl whose father died, therefore her mother married her off. But remember again, when the mother marries her off, that is only a kiddushin dirabbanan. So Master Yirmiyah, Yisoma Shenadra. So we'll say if you have a Yisoma who's married, right, and she made a neder, Baila Mefarla. Her husband has the ability to go ahead and annul her neder. Now we'll say, understand, the fact that in this case we're calling her a Yisoma, that means what age is she? She's a Ketana. She's a Ketana, right? She's before the age of 12, because once she reaches the age of 12 and continues in this marriage, she no longer has the identity of a Yisoma. She's called an Eishes Ish. Now, so what's interesting over here is as follows. So therefore, this girl, below the age of 12, makes a neder. What are we saying? Her husband has the ability to annul it. I amrit bishlama mufla samoch leish dirabanan. So we'll say, now watch this. It makes sense if you say that a mufla samoch leish. So let's remember again, mufla samoch leish for a boy is the age of 12 to 13. For a girl, ultimately it's what? It's 11 to 12. So if you say that a mufla samoch leish is dirabanan, asu nisu dirabanan umevatle nadra dirabanan. So let's say it makes sense. So in this case over here, this girl who's below the age of 12 was married off by her mother. She made a neder. She's 11 years old. She made a neder. So now what did the Brisa just say? Who has the ability to annul that neder? Who? Her husband. So it makes sense. Why? Because if you hold that mufla samach leish is dirabanan, that means her neder is dirabanan, her marriage is dirabanan, her dirabanan husband could go ahead and what? Annul her dirabanan vow. But if you say that mufla samoch leish has the ability to make a neder doraisa, asu nisun dirabanan umevatli nidja doraisa, they both say that how could her dirabanan husband come along and what? Be mevatl her doraisa neder. Amr Yehuda Amr Shmuel bal meifrla mimanavshach. So the truth is, her husband has the capacity to annul her neder mimanavshach. How so? Watch this. Dirabanan. If you say that mufla samoch leish is dirabanan, then ultimately, like we said before, then her dirabanan husband could annul her dirabanan neder. I daraisa, we'll say, watch this. If her neder is daraisa, then what? Katan ochal nevelosu. Then ultimately, again, she's like, katan ochal nevelosu, we'll say, is when we see a child doing something wrong. So she's considered to be ultimately, again, a katan ochal nevelos. Ve'ein bezdin mitzuvin alav la'afrisha. So we'll say, so essentially what we're saying is like this is quite fascinating. If ultimately an ish, I'm sorry, I keep on forgetting the lashon. Mufla samach liish. If mufla samach liish is derabanan, then what Rabbi says, she's just made a binding neder. If she's made a binding neder, then essentially what we have over here is a child who has made a neder, which is a child who's going to be engaging in wrongdoing. It could be that this opinion reflects the idea that when we see a child engaging in wrongdoing, what do we say to ourselves? Just a kid. Doesn't really matter. Just a child, and therefore there's no real obligation to intervene. Which Rabbi saying is another way of saying that although the husband is going to say, "I'm being made for your neder," that hafara is irrelevant. But it doesn't really matter that hafara is irrelevant. Why? Because Lamaisa, she's a ketana anyway. So she could do whatever she wants. She makes the neder, she keeps the neder, doesn't make the neder. It doesn't really make a difference, and we're not obligated to intervene in the life of a child. So this is really incredible. So what we're saying over here is, when the ketana wife, right, she's a yisoma, so she's 11 years old. She made a neder. So what does the Brisa say? The Baal could be made for it. And what we're saying is, the truth is, either way it works fine. If you hold that mufla samuch leish is dirabanan, so then again her neder is dirabanan, her marriage is dirabanan. Let her dirabanan husband be made for her neder. If you say samuch mufla leish, mufla samuch leish is daraisa, then she's made a binding neder. It's true, her husband technically can't be made for it, but the truth is, we don't care. She's a ketana, so let the ketana make any nedarim she wants. She's not going to really be held liable anyway. The husband could quote-unquote be made for it, even though his hafara is meaningless, because she's a minor. Since she's a minor, we're not really concerned what she's doing. To which the Gemara says, V'ha ki gadla achla ba'afara kamaisa. But here's the problem. The problem is, but once she becomes a gedola, she assumes that her husband was made for the neder. And because she assumes that her husband's made for the neder, she's going to conduct herself accordingly. Amra bar Livai, Baila made for la kol sha'a v'sha'a. Ultimately, going to say what we do, Rashi says, kol sha'a af misha gadla. In a case like this, the husband would have to be made for the neder again after she becomes an adult. The Gemara says, made for la kol sha'a v'sha'a. V'hu shaba'al. Rabbi said that only assumes that what? That they had relations after she became a gedola. Because once she turns 12 years old in one day and she lives with her husband, then what happens? The marriage transforms into a doraisa union. Once the marriage transforms into a doraisa union, he has true power of revocation of vows over her. Look at Rashi. V'hu shabal la'achar shegadla dahav yahach be'ila kiddushin gimurin doraisa. The Maisa Gidola Maisa Hilchach Asan Isun Daraisa Mavatla Niddah Daraisa. So therefore, at that point in time, when the marriage morphs into a Daraisa marriage, then what? Then the Daraisa husband has the ability to be made for the Daraisa vow. But one second, Vaha Ein Baal Mefer Bekodmin. But we'll say, but one second, in general, a husband cannot be made for Nidarim that occurred before the marriage. So I will say that's general halach, right? If a woman made Niddah when she was single and she comes into her marriage, her husband doesn't have power of revocation of that. Isn't that kind of this case? Niddarim that she made while she was a ketana are kind of like vows that were made before marriage. If that's the case, even if she lives with her husband after marriage, so the marriage morphs into a doraisa marriage, how could the husband have the ability to be made for those Niddarim after? Look at Rashi. Ein abal mefer Niddarim akol milinisum sech Niddarim. To which Pinchas Shrei Rava Dam Pinchas Shrei Rava. Kala no deres, al das baila hi no deres. Because Pinchas says, Rabbi said that what? Anytime a woman makes a vow, she makes the vow al das baila. Look at Rashi, al das baila. V'hach kitana al daito shel zen nadra. V'chi amrina ina baal mefer bekod min heicha de les la baal b'shas adikah. Well, it's actually quite fascinating. Even when the girl is a minor, when she makes her nidarim, she makes it al das baila. Al das baila means what Rabbi say that she knows that her husband has the ability to revoke it. Now, even though in this particular case, halacha lemaisa, the husband doesn't have the ability to revoke it, but because the husband is a party to the neder, therefore, once the marriage transforms into a biblical union, he has the ability to go ahead and be made for it. So both say, so it comes out of it. So remember, we don't have a definitive ruling yet. So here's still the yisodistic machlokes. When you have a muflas samuch leish make a neder, what's the status of that neder? Is it d'oraisa or is it d'Rabbanan? So if it's d'Rabbanan, then even the husband of the minor girl has the ability to be made for it, because it's a d'Rabbanan versus a d'Rabbanan. But ultimately, again, even if it's a d'oraisa, when she's a ketana, we don't really care, right? Because she's just a ketana, who cares what she does? When she becomes a gedola, if she has relations with her husband, and the marriage then transforms into a biblical union, then what? Then halacha lamaisa, then he has the ability to be made for the neder. But that was a neder made before their union was biblical, since the husband was a party to the neder, because they were already married, albeit a rabbinic union, at the time she made the neder. Therefore, he has rights of revocation over that neder at the point that the marriage ultimately transitions into a biblical union. All right, so we'll stop over here. We'll pick it with Amar Abaye Mirtz Hashem tomorrow. We'll both say again. So remember, we still have to figure out. So we found the halachos of shtei saras, right? We learned that halacha lemaisa toch zman is kilifnei zman. In other words, the year between 12 and 13 for a boy, 11 and 12 in girl is minor, and therefore even if he or she sprouts signs of physical maturation, those are irrelevant. In order to become a gadol, what do you need? Simanim and shanim. Halacha lemaisa. What we don't know yet, one more thing we do know is that ultimately nidarim made in that we'll call that lead-up year, 12 to 13 for a boy, 11 to 12 for a girl, those nidarim are significant. What don't we know yet? Are they significant d'oraisa or d'Rabbanan? That's still the outlying issue, which Emirat Hashem we will resolve tomorrow.